It's time for PetSylvania with Dr. Bob Esplin. Dr. Bob guides you through the latest veterinary techniques and procedures to keep your pets in the best of health. PetSylvania is brought to you by Elanco, maker of Trifexis and Comfortis. With your ears up and tails wagging, here is Dr. Bob.
Hi, pet lovers. It's Dr. Bob from SylvaniaVET, and I'm here to provide you with pet care information today. Thanks, Elanco, for sponsoring the program. So let's get to some pet care advice. I think I got into conversation this week with a client about the history of heartworm and how it became to be known in Northwest Ohio, and this goes all the way back to the late '60s when it was not felt that heartworm existed below the Mason-Dixon line, and a study was done by somebody at Bowling Green, actually, and they used animals at the Bowling Green Animal Shelter, and they found a significant amount of heartworm disease in animals in the Bowling Green Animal Shelter, and that changed everything because now we realized it was in Northwest Ohio as well as in below the Mason-Dixon line. And when people started looking all over the country, lo and behold, it was there, and it wasn't just because people had relocated. Certainly, we have plenty of water around here and plenty of mosquitoes. We're in the height of mosquito season right now. Fortunately, it's been really dry, so I guess there's benefits out of the drought that exists, but because the mosquitoes haven't been too bad. But heartworm is a mosquito-transmitted disease, and so back in the beginning, when it was first discovered, there was just one product available. It was a pill. You had to give it every day. It was called diethylcarbamazine, or DEC, and there was always worry that if you gave DEC to a dog that had heartworm, then they could have an adverse reaction and actually die. So there was a great emphasis on doing a blood test in the dog before they started taking their diethylcarbamazine in the spring. And at that time, we were only giving it, we didn't know as much about that at that time, and so we weren't really giving it properly when it really boils down to it. But we were giving it for 6 or 7 months out of the year. But as we learned more about the heartworm disease itself and the life cycle of the heartworm, it was ultimately decided that regardless of where you lived, it was a pretty good idea to give it year round. And so that's where we're at right now. But back in the beginning, we were giving these pills from about April through November, and then we were done. And the problem is that the medicine, when given, when the DEC was given, it kind of worked in real time. And if you didn't give it on time, then your animal would have a window where it could be exposed to heartworm disease. That created a lot of anxiety on the part of dog owners if they missed a dose or two. And we're human, and we do that. So then the next step in the evolution of heartworm prevention came with a product called Filaribits, which was a chewable pill, and you gave that, and it was still once a day. It was diethylcarbamazine in a chewable pill, but you still gave that every day, but it just got easier because most dogs like the taste of it and would eat it, and it made it easier than trying to hide it in a piece of hot dog or a marshmallow, which is a good way to get a pill down a dog, if incidentally. And then you could be sure that your dog was protected, and it was very effective. It did protect the dogs. Along comes once a month product, and that was a huge step. But once a month product created some situations that were kind of interesting. One is it worked differently. It worked on another stage of the life cycle. So it actually works backwards rather than forwards. When you give a once a month pill, it doesn't keep a blood level in the dog for a whole month. It works backwards backwards, and it's gone in about 2 days. And so giving it monthly in a timely manner, and we generally recommend you always give it on the first of the month. Even if you miss it by a few days, it's not a big deal. So you give it the first of the month. Well, ultimately what we found is that the testing had to be done differently as well, because in the early stages when we tested, we looked for the larva of the disease that would circulate in the dog's blood. But a dog that had been on the monthly medication, those larvae were killed off, and so we had to start doing a test called an occult blood test. That's now the standard of the profession. Rarely, except in an occult positive dog, do we ever do the microfilaria test, and we just do that to verify the presence of the microfilaria because it helps us with our treatment. And so today, still, once a month heartworm prevention is the best way to go, and is the thing that we recommend. So HeartGuard Plus, Trifexis, which has once a month flea control, Interceptor, if it ever comes back on the market, are in my mind the products of choice. I don't recommend Advantage Multicare because it contains the same product that was in ProHeart, which was the once a month, 6-month injection that killed a lot of dogs and has now come back on the market. And we don't know why it killed all these dogs. And so so avoiding the active ingredient to me is kind of important. So I hope that little bit of history about heartworm was of interest to you. A little commercial about what we do at SylvaniaVET. One of the other pet care destination things we do is that we have daycare, and our daycare is open 6 days a week. It's open in the morning from you can literally, because our overnight staff's there all the time, you can literally drop off any time and pretty much pick up any time. We don't charge you extra for those services, but daycare actually opens at 7 in the morning and goes until 6:30 at night, and that's the period that you're paying for. But other daycares, if you're late, they charge you $1 a minute for your late because the people are anxious to get home. Other things that make ours unique is that our facility is well air conditioned. So in this really hot weather, it's been very good for the dogs to be in there. The outside we have pools in the warm weather, and it's pea gravel so that it doesn't get all muddy and dirty. It's safe and secure for the animals to run in. And the most important thing, and to the best of our knowledge, we're the only daycare in the area that has a daycare padded surface. It's a rubberized flooring in the indoor arena that makes it much more secure for the dog. There's less likely to be torn nails, pulled muscles, or damaged ligaments in daycare. We also sell. Your pet can come for an hour or 2 hours. Many other daycares require half day or whole day, and that's all that's all they allow. We allow you to come and go, and we just keep track of your hours, and then and we have a card that you can buy that'll make it more economical for you, so that you can then use it any way you want to. We have people that bring their dogs all day, every day, because they don't want to leave them home, and we have people that come in just a couple times a week. They come in on Saturdays from 9 to 1 while they go off and do errands or work in the yard or whatever they're doing on Saturday. They can drop the dog off. They can play with other pets and have a good time. And if you come, you can meet my dog Tressie. And my dog Tressie, and you can guess who that, being a Buckeye fan, who that was named after. And yes, I know that he's in a little bit of disrepute right now, but at the time he was not. And I still admire the man greatly, even though he made a mistake. We're all allowed that. So she's a Portuguese water dog. And people ask me, is that the kind of dog the president has? And I say, no, he has the kind of dog I have. And because I had mine first, and there was a nice article in a magazine that was sent. We send this magazine to clients every month with their reminders. It's a really nice way to get your pet's vaccine reminders. And there was a highlight on Portuguese water dog, and so some of the things that they talked about that were right at the top of the list. And I would verify everything that's on here because they may have used my dog dog as an example. They're extremely adaptable to the environment and to the circumstances in which you have them live, whether they be an apartment dog or living on a farm or living in a neighborhood. They adapt to that really well. They're extraordinarily affectionate. Our first dog, the breeder says this is a very in-your-face dog, and I would tell you that's true. My dogs love to just stay when I'm sitting, and they'll just jump onto my lap on their front end and just lay their head on my chest and let me pet them, and they really love that. They're great in apartments. They're very social. They love people. They love to interact. They're great with kids. It just goes on, and they tend to bark a little bit, which makes them watchdog friendly, because you'd like to know if somebody's coming around the house or somebody's at the door, but you don't want them to be aggressive about it. And so that's another whole conversation of what do you have, what's a good dog to have as a guard dog, and we can do that sometime in the future. It's time to take a break, and so I'll turn it over to my producer. Thanks, Steve. In reading pet food labels, one of the things that seems to get clients confused, and it's used in advertising as a negative, is that where they talk about byproducts, and the implication about byproducts is that it's hair and it's skin and it's hooves and it's beaks and it's who knows what not, and it all sounds kind of unsavory. That's for sure. Well, first off, byproducts are when they're used, they're processed. All right, so that you have byproduct meal or something of that nature. But the definition of a byproduct is established by an organization called the American Association of Food Companies, and they regulate it. And on the beef side, byproducts can be considered anything other than hair and hooves and horns and hide. Certainly not manure. Stomach content isn't allowed. But if after the stomach content is clean, the stomach has muscle in it and has nutritive value, as do the intestines. So these things all have to be cleaned and processed, disinfected, if you will, and sterilized before they're turned into a meal. On the chicken side, they can use heads and feet, again, because there's little bits of muscle and tendon tissue which can be have nutritive value if they're properly processed. And then the gizzard and the heart and the liver and those things can certainly lend nutritive value as well. And again, on the side of chickens, fecal material is not allowed. I had a client recently that said, "Yeah, I know that that these pet food companies, when they do pie products, they pick up dead animals off the side of the road, and then those are incorporated in the food." That's absolutely untrue. The standards that the pet food companies' manufacturing facilities meet are pretty much the same as the standards that meat processing goes through on the human side, and in part that's because there's a significant number of people that at some point in their life, or maybe on a daily basis, as sad as it is to say, may be eating pet food rather than human food because it's nutritively probably better than some of the things that they could buy at the low end of the human food chain, and it's less expensive. So that's kind of sad to think that could go on. Another point that's worth making is that if you see the AVCA logo or statement on a bag, it's important to understand what they don't do. And AAFCO does not regulate, test, approve, or certify food in any way, shape, or form. They're there to just help establish standards. So I would encourage you to go to www.aafco.org if you're interested in learning more about the organization and about how pet foods are manufactured and how the ingredients of pet foods are put together. But remember, pet foods are labels are put together before foods are processed, and that affects the actual percentage of a given product in the food. I tell you about cases almost every week, and I like to tell you about cases that have positive outcomes. But sometimes in the saddest situation, you really find out, how your staff shines, because you're dealing with high level emotion. And we had a case that came in this week where I think that everybody on the staff just did a great job in a condition that had a sad outcome. This poor dog came in, and it hadn't been feeling well, but not for very long. And I was actually the doctor that started the case, and I examined the dog, and it was pale as a ghost. And we ended up determining that it was bleeding internally, and that it had already had lumps and bumps in internal organs, and that it was was struggling to get enough air into its lungs, because it had so few red blood cells. It would be like trying to run at the top of Vail Pass, run a marathon breathing through a straw. You just couldn't get enough oxygen into the cells for this poor dog to breathe easily. So it was decided to put to sleep. Well, the owners wanted to have some family there, and we said that's fine. And so we said, make your calls and come on in. Well, this was about 7 o'clock at night when all this transpired. By 8, we had all our answers. We knew how bad a shape the dog was in, and we knew that euthanasia was the best decision, though the hardest decision. I mean, being able to make these life and death decisions is not something that we take lightly, and it's a real privilege that we're given to be able to make this decision, but it's a burden to know that we're making it for the right reasons. And we made this decision to recommend euthanasia for the right reasons, and the owners came to grips with that. But from 8 o'clock, knowing what they were going to do, they stayed and held the animal at the office until 1:30 in the morning before we finally put it to sleep. And there must have been 10 or 12 employees through shift changes and everything that were there to give them a tremendous amount of support. And so sometimes in the most trying times, you really can tell just how good your people are. And I am so impressed with how my people handled that very difficult situation. And the client, of course, was very grateful. We get a lot of comments about brown spots in the yard. Send the dog out to pee in the grass, and the next thing you know, there's a brown spot there. And there's things that are sold in the store that are supposed to help prevent that from happening. Well, the reality of those don't work, and they may actually be harmful because they can contribute. They're acidifiers, and what they can ultimately do is over-acidify the urine and lead to the development of calcium oxalate crystals and calcium oxalate stones. So we don't recommend any of those acidifiers. The reality is a brown spot is a burn in the grass caused by the high nitrogen content. So it's basically a fertilizer burn. So how do you deal with that? Well, if you've got a dog that's really burning the yard, and I'd create a potty space for it with mulch or stone, or you can turn the sprinkler system on, or you can take a bucket of water out and dump it on the spot and dilute it down, and you'll generally avoid having the problem associated with brown spots that way. And but just remember, if like when you're putting fertilizer on the yard, when you make the turn, if you don't get that thing turned on and off right when you do the spreader, you get a little strip of fertilizer come down. Now there's too much, and that spot of the yard burns too. So it's the same deal when it comes to urine burns in the yard. So brown spots are best dealt with by dilution. So you can try to dilute the urine by increasing the water consumption. That's a good idea. Canned food will do that. Higher carbohydrates in the dog and less protein, so that there's less protein waste, because that's where the nitrogen comes from, might be a good idea. So a diet that's really high in protein for an adult dog may not necessarily be the best idea. It's probably excessive. Excessive protein is broken down in the liver and turned into a carbohydrate, and then nitrogen waste, which is comes out in the urine as urea. And urea is tested in the blood on a test called a BUN, blood urea nitrogen. And a dog with bad kidneys, their BUN will be elevated. One of the things that we strongly recommend that you do for your dog and your cat is have at least once yearly, if not twice yearly, stool checks run. Internal parasites in dogs and cats are potentially, some of them at least, are potentially contagious to humans, and particularly in households with young children. It's a really good idea. Getting stool checks done repeatedly when you have a young puppy. Those puppies come into your household from environments that we may or may not know everything we need to know about. Can't emphasize how important it is to do that stool check. It's money extremely well spent, and you do it throughout the animal's life. It's time to take a break, and we'll be back to put a little closure on today's program. Hi, we're back to close it up here. So I want to thank Elanco, makers of Trifexis and Comfortis, for sponsoring the show. I think that I want to remind you that we have great prices on both products, $10 to $20 rebates, depending on whether you buy 6 or 12. And if you'd like to come buy product from us and you're not a client, you're welcome. You just need to schedule a free get acquainted examination where one of our doctors will introduce you. You'll be subjected to a tour of our facility, but I think you're going to be very impressed. And then we'd be happy to sell you as little as 1 dose of Trifexis, but we do have the best prices in town, bar none. The August 18th, we'll remind you at the next couple of broadcasts as well, but August 18th is the Maumee Street Fair, and SylvaniaVET will be at the Maumee Street Fair from 9 to 5, and so come on out and see us. We're going to have a bunch of real nice giveaway stuff that you can have. There will probably be some contests and an opportunity to win a door prize, so feel free to come by, say hi, tell us you listen to WSYL. I think that would be great if you would do that. So just a reminder about me and who I am. I'm Dr. Bob Esplin. I'm one of 7 doctors at SylvaniaVET. We are a pet care destination. Literally every need that you could possibly have for your pet, we can meet it in some way. The address is 4801 North Holland, Sylvania at Haroon, down the street from Flower Hospital. Our website is www.sylvaniavet.com. Go on there, take a little time to check it out, look at the archived FYIs, register to receive the monthly newsletter. I think you'll find it useful information every week. So again, thanks for listening. I'll be back next week, and hopefully send those requests to WSYLradio.com so that I'll have some questions that I can answer on air. Thank you.
You have been listening to PetSylvania with Dr. Bob Esplin on WSYLradio.com. PetSylvania is brought to you by Elanco, maker of Trifexis and Comfortis. Tune in every Saturday at 10 a.m. as Dr. Bob explains the latest in veterinary care and answers your questions. You can email your pet questions to requests@WSYLradio.com, and Dr. Bob will answer them on a future show.